thanks. It's a privilege. It's really an honor to have you yet once again here and share the stage. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I always learn something. Don't say anything out loud that you don't want getting out, right? So otherwise keep it inside your head. So anything I did say, I stand by it, right? So that's kind of one quick thing. So I'm going to start sharing my screen already. Let me just go into presenter mode here. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, and maybe just 1 or 2 words, a little bit about myself and kind of the digital therapeutics as in a broader digital health industry. So I'm Eugene Borukhovic. I am co-founder and CEO at Your Coach Health. I've been in healthcare and health tech for the last 2 decades, and kind of always joke around that I lost most of my hair in those 2 decades, pedaling upstream. I've spent some time at a pharmacy benefit management, my own companies and startups. And then prior to joining my wife, Marina, in January of 2020 and building out Your Coach, I ran a digital health team at a large pharmaceutical company. And, you know, I think to me, just setting the stage a little bit for, you know, obviously the conference is focused on digital therapeutics. I was immediately a fan as soon as I learned about it, and this was in the pharmaceutical company. We were one of the first companies to join the DTA to kind of drive some of this forward. And of course, some of the challenges that the industry is experiencing today, I think it's the upstream adoption, engagement, and hence, you know, to a certain extent, the vision that Marina had around health coaching and that we're sort of combining and bridging, as I'll talk through it, is, you know, we do see a spectrum, right? There are self-paced digital tools and digital therapies that are out there that are working. You know, some are PDTs, prescription, some are non. And there's an intrinsic motivation for many individuals across different therapeutic area or patients with different diseases to use those. On the other spectrum is, of course, a lot of the clinical talent that's out there that we know that there's a shortage of across the globe, not just in US. And I know we're presenting here mostly probably to the European audience, but there's a shortage of that. And so we kind of look at health coaching, which today is the goal here is to demystify what it really is. And if I was on an actual physical stage with all of you guys sitting in the chairs, I would probably ask the question of how many actually know about health coaching and what it means to you, right? Since I can't get the responses, I'm going to just assume the same or similar answers that I hear every day as we're talking. I am going to make an assumption that most of you have heard about health coaching, especially during COVID, and I know we're still in the pandemic officially. There's been a big boost in health coaching. It's been tremendous for our business. It's been tremendous for the individuals that are served by health coaches, but we see it in the news constantly, right? From New York Times to Well to Forbes, you know, basically why not get a health coach, right? So that's kind of a little bit of what we're seeing the buzz around. And, you know, I think part of this, and this is very much focused on the US, but obviously globally, we're at 8 trillion. You know, the market data, and, you know, if you were able to run, you can click on this, but I'm happy to share it through the organizers. There's a set of studies, and the whole premise of it that because it's lifestyle changes, and we know that 86% of that 4 trillion spent in US alone can be reduced by lifestyle changes, which that's where health coaching come in, right? And again, I'll dive a little bit deeper into this. So today, if we look at DTX, I've seen some projections around 28 to 30 billion spent. I don't remember what year. From a health coaching perspective, it's already a 7 billion industry in US alone, and projected to be at 9 billion, which this report is from 2 years ago. So we are actually, as Your Coach, we're actually expecting that industry by 2025 to be even larger than 9 billion. But today we have not released our health coaching report. And the way you look at health coaching, it's really becoming a bridge between wellness. And when I first got, you know, when I first learned about health coaching from Marina, I honestly thought about this as a little bit of a cuckoo voodoo science, but there is science behind it, and again, I'll go much more into the detail of what we're seeing out there in the field. But it truly has become this bridge between wellness and healthcare. So for those who don't know what it is, because we actually get asked the question all the time, what is a health and wellness coach, right? And I'll read it slowly for you guys, and I know you can see it, and then I'll give you kind of an interesting summary of what it is. But a certified health coach, and that's the key term here, is a trusted non-clinical partner. That's the other key term. It's a non-clinical profession, and also a mentor who actually empowers you as an individual to identify and achieve your goals, right? And it is related to health, wellness, mindset, encouragement, support, and those are the individuals that are now in the front lines within the gaps of health and care. And I think many of the companies that are actually leveraging health coaches out there to do disease reversal. So think about Verta Health, disease management. If you think about, again, somebody like Amada, and then prevention and even performance, right? We all want to be at the top of our game and at the top of our performance, whatever that performance means to you as an individual. So why a health coach? The one key component of this, I think, especially if you look at the US, and, I'm not tracking the costs here in Europe, but, cost of nurses have almost tripled in the last 2 years. And again, I'm not comparing coaches to nurses or to doctors. There's absolutely a place. And again, the one key component of this health coach is a non-clinical member of a healthcare team, but more cost effective. So that's kind of one key component of this. Two, coaches are trained in science-backed techniques, as an example, motivational interviewing. And so if you think about, we always get asked the question, how is a health coach different from a psychotherapist? As a matter of fact, while there's much more intensive training for psychotherapists, the techniques that are being used are actually very similar. The difference is a psychotherapist would look back and try to help you find root causes of your challenges. A coach will look at it today and go forward on how do you understand what the definition is, set and achieve your goals, right? So it's forward looking, where psychotherapy is backward looking. And this goes into number 3, proficient in asking the right questions to get the individuals to actually determine to reach their long and short-term goals. The example that I've been using is, somebody who, God forbid, had a stroke, and get assigned to wear a device, to be monitored, to take certain drugs. The industry, and I say broadly as a healthcare industry, wants that person to wear the device. That's the adherence to the drugs, et cetera. If you step back, and a conversation with the coach may look like that person's ultimate goal is to be able to just get up from a chair and walk 2 blocks to see their loved one, right? And so that's an overarching goal. And the short-term goal becomes maybe wearing the device or taking the drug to achieve that larger goal. The number 4 is around building long-term relationships, and it's a common thread. I didn't go into how we discovered it, but Marina, my wife, discovered health coaching as she went through her breast cancer journey, through everything from chemotherapy to radiotherapy, mastectomy, reconstruction surgeries, and actually discovered coaching. And she kind of wished that she had a health coach on that journey as a common thread for her through that journey, through the journey and then post-journey and recovery. We all heard the numbers of 8 minutes to see a patient as a doctor, if that. And where coaches are, and that's their profession, is to actually spend trained time and meaningful time in certain time blocks to actually work on those goals. They're educators, they're motivators, and they're proponents of self-care. I mean, you guys know that when you fly, you're always told to put your mask first before you help others. That's the concept. We all need to do self-care before we can help others. And combined, that's where health coaching comes in. So this is a snapshot from our platform, we get asked, well, what do your coaches specialize in? And again, this is not about your coach, but broadly speaking, what health coaches specialize in. Our answer is always the following. A good certified health coach is a health coach is a health coach. Any coach can talk through and walk people through and help people get their intrinsic motivation woken up, get their goals straight. However, we all know that understanding in the context of a particular disease or particular condition or particular goal is important, right? So as an example, we have 2,700 coaches in our platform, and we're tracking them across 16 categories. And they're coaches that specialize in MSK, gut health, metabolic health. Again, I won't read every one of them, but that just to give you guys an idea that while, again, coaching is coaching, it is super important to understand the context and really, for lack of a better term, to step into that patient or health consumer's brain. I'm going to give you a little bit more context, and I'm setting the scene here because the novelty, while the industry has been around for over 2 decades now, not until about 2012, the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaching was formed, and they started working together with the National Medical Examiners Board and the AMA later on, and but basically to set standards, to set accreditation, to set certifications, and drive the adoption of health and wellness coaching. Again, I said this earlier a little bit. I actually thought of this a bit of a again, cuckoo voodoo is the term that I'm using in a funny way, but there's real science behind it. There's real methodologies behind it, and the national board in 2019, end of 2019. Together with the American Medical Association, now considered a certified, national board certified coach as again, my paraphrasing, non-clinical member of a healthcare team, and released test codes. So these are not being reimbursed today, but they were released. There are 3 codes that were released, and for the DTX folks that are tracking a lot of the reimbursements and things like that for DTX, you'll also be familiar with a lot of this. So this was meant to start tracking the usage of these codes. There are 3 codes that were released. One is for initial health coaching session, 30 minutes, one for continued sessions for 30 minutes, these are personal, and then one code for a 60-minute group session coaching. The next good news is in April of 2021, taxonomy code, and again, this is very, the taxonomy code is very US specific in this case, but taxonomy code for a certified health and wellness coach was released, which means that now, whether it's an EMR, EHR, you can actually find a health coach, a certified health coach with that taxonomy code, and coaches can now register for their national provider identifier. On an education side, you see some of the logos on the right side. These are prestigious universities across US. There are continuing education programs and certifications. So many nurses, doctors are going in, and we're tracking over 150 schools now that have either certifications, undergraduate or graduate degrees. And then we'll dive a little bit deeper into it, but there is science and outcomes. And one of the things and the steps to move from CPT level 3 to 1 is actually now going into real world data collection of those CPT codes to bring this to the AMA board in the next 24 months. So National Board, together with UC San Diego, launched a real world data collection earlier in the year, which is expected to go through early next year. And again, I will talk a little bit more about the studies, and I'm just watching my time, already halfway through. I'm not going to read all of these because I do want to actually leave room for some more questions, but the National Board, together with Well Coaches, actually put together a compendium of research and studies up and through 2019. We're now, as an industry, in the process of catching up from 2019 through 2022. We've seen a huge spike in studies with health coaching. Just some quick examples, and while you can do a screen grab, on the bottom is the actual source for the compendium. This is our quick summary, even though compendium is the summary of the summaries, but we all have limited time. But again, there's been health coaching studies done in oncology, heart disease, obesity, cholesterol, hypertension, diabetes, and we just picked those 6 out of many more that's been bucketed. Again, I won't read too much of this, but on the bottom right for you guys, there was a study done that coaches save about 500 a person per year today. Now, there's some intricacies to that study. One above that seems to be a 12-week, so which is about 3 months on a program, on a coaching program. Seems to be effective. We're finding, again, it depends on a particular individual, a particular therapeutic area that you're coming across and your goals. And our comment a little bit, and Marina says this all the time, we as individuals ebb and flow, right? And so we may have a challenge today that we have overcome and worked with a coach to overcome those challenges in health and wellness. And in 2 months or 3 months or 7 months, there are other things that go on. And back to one of the points, why a health coach, it is that person that spans your life and throughout. And especially, I think, as the reimbursements are on their way, it'll be interesting to see. Well, let's get to the digital therapeutics, right? I think, one of the key component of this is the realization, and we always say kind of the human eye today is still better than AI. Again, not to say DTX is AI, but we sort of broadly talking about AI as technology. And I alluded to this earlier in my presentation around that there will be individuals that are intrinsically motivated to, again, I'm not going to pick any particular therapeutic area for DTX, but to actually use a tool that's either prescribed by a doctor, right, in a PDT world, either recommended by a virtual care company that's part of the offering, or use themselves as a wellness tool, right? So as an example, something like Headspace, while not officially a digital therapeutic, I know with the merger DTX. So one of our first large partnerships is with Twill. I think many of you know them as, and we purposely left their old logo here, but Artist is formerly known as Happify. And where we're powering up completely the Duet, so Twill Duet live coaching offering. And there was a lot of discussions and decisions on when does it work, when does it not work, how does it complement the core tool. And again, the hypothesis that the combined entities have is that it enhances and improves the experience of that health consumer with Twill, etc. So that's kind of where this is our launch partner. We are just onboarding a large employer and a health plan. So more data to come. We're obviously working together. Twill is very much anchored into science-backed methodologies around their own tools. And so we're really looking forward to how a lot of this, kind of continues to evolve. There's a number of digital therapeutic companies that we're speaking with today, and it's very similar. On one side, they're being asked by upstream, especially on the B2B side, clients to get that human touch, that empathy, that behavioral health methodology, right, to help us as human beings improve. And a lot of this is improve outcomes, improve engagement with those self-paced therapies, right? And again, non-prescription or prescription. And then we're seeing use cases. I'm sure there's many folks in the life sciences world that are watching this as well, tying a lot of this to the digital therapies or companions, even around molecules, right? So you have a molecule, you have the companion, and then you have the live support, to help individuals go through their journey. Not meant to be a bit, but in a way, what we're trying to do, and that's one of the challenges as well, because of the way health coaching has evolved. Today, you can lose a lot of weight, what worked for you, and apply those methodologies to your potential clients to start a practice, and you can call yourself a health coach. The national board that I talked about earlier has now defined, scope of practice, et cetera. Our comment is real world data or the certifications backed up by real world data are important. And one of the biggest challenges in the industry and the adoption of this is actually quality and validation of those coaches. So that's, in a bit how we're doing this as your coach. We provide coaches a platform to manage their own business. We filed a number of patents to identify, and again, I put in parentheses, good coaches. It's always about a personal match, but good coaches. We filed a bunch of patents around matching technology and leveling up coaches. And what we enable is for the digital therapeutic companies, digital health companies, and others to embed coaching using our APIs, et cetera, for that quality and the studies that we can do together and understand and benefit of the health coaching, but ultimately that individual that's been either prescribed or using your digital therapeutic. One key component, and this is where the two worlds, the digital therapeutics world, which has been around a little over a decade, right, building this as a term at least. And then on the other side, health coaching that really picked up steam around the same time with the national board. I mean, if we think about like Click Therapeutics and many other companies that were really born in 2012, I think Walduck was probably one of the first, in the 2008, 2009 time. But the two kind of industries, let's go sub-industries, have been sort of developing together. And what we're seeing is those industries coming together closely because, again, there's just not enough clinical talent out there. I think the premise of digital therapies and just broader digital health has been to help us as individuals to live a happier and healthier life. And that's the mission of a health coach ultimately. And so the two worlds are now coming together with the realization that we really need to start looking at still that human empathy, and how we help each other as individuals as well. Please ignore, that's what happens when you do the slides at 1 a.m. Please ignore 5 and 6, but I'll go through some of the challenges, which is 1 through 4, and then I'm going to wrap up here. And I see Georgi already came up, but I'll flow these very quickly. So one, I think DTX industry is challenging as it is. Pairing coaching with digital therapies and outcome studies is going to be the challenge ahead. And so, but there are other ways that you can kind of define this. Two, streamlining, I think the digital therapeutic as an industry still trying to find that real business model. There's lots of discussions in the DTX podcast that I run, many discussions around channels and optimizing PDT versus non-PDT. So I think now combined, especially in the value-based care scenario, is going to be the next challenge that we need to solve. Three, coaching protocol design surrounding and implementing around the digital therapies based on the therapeutic area. And then, of course, adoption and scaling based on upcoming health coaching reimbursements. And again, digital therapeutic as an industry is also kind of in the same spot. Ignore the 5 and 6. And I think just want to end with kind of our mission at Your Coach is by year 2030 for the 8.5 billion projected people to have access, not necessarily have them, but to have access to health coaching, creating happy and healthy humans.
Beautiful, beautiful, Eugene, as always. Now, don't hurry up that much. I actually have three questions for you, and I'm going to start from the more general one to the more personal one. Given your role as a podcast host and somebody that's basically on speed with everything going on in the industry, can you pinpoint, is there something that you could put your finger on as a trend or as an ongoing challenge that you personally deem as game-changing and as a fundamental aspect of the future of digital health?
Yeah, I do want to, because I think to me, digital health is just too broad, right? And while there is a definition out there, I just think it's convoluted. And so what I'd like to zoom in, because this is mostly focused on digital therapies, I think one of the biggest challenges, and I think I get asked this as a podcast host, but I also say that I'm not a practitioner on the ground, right? For DTX, health coaching is not DTX, or Your Coach is not a DTX company. But it's that whole channel and finding that business model and the scaling piece, right? And I think, as you know, we've seen the DTA kind of on the hill in Washington D.C. There's a lot of positive impact. We're still seeing companies, you know, such as Achille and Pear. I know there's a down market generally, but I think that adoption of the PDTs is going to be game changing, especially with, you know, my view on this, especially in the neurodegenerative space. I think the PDTs and DTXs will flourish. Again, I'm going to be very contrarian. While there's a lot of money that was invested, while, you know, I love what Corey and team are doing at Pear, I do think the CBT world is going to get a bit kind of diminished, or let's call it, you know, compared to the molecular world, right? There's brand and generics. I think the CBTs will become more of a generic because it's replicatable. Let's call it that way. So I think we're at that point where we're gonna scale the heck out of it on the PDT side, but one key thing is we will need on the PDT side real adoption from the practitioners and prescribers, and I think we still got a long way to go there.
Got it. And mentioning the keyword contrarian, we've heard earlier today a bit of discussion around the prescribed track. So basically going after the insurances and the out of pocket, and potentially the challenging opportunity for them to coexist. So from your take, is there a way to is there a balancing act? Is that either or is it somehow possible to actually go both ways?
I think it's both, and some companies will choose one route. And again, I'll just use the same Achille or Pear, right, to go the PDT route. And I think there is a level of differentiation there, and a bit of the, you know, FDA and other governing body stamp. Again, I think it'll depend on that spectrum that I spoke about. There are, you know, intrinsically motivated individuals, the acuity of that individual therapeutic area, right? Specifically, acuity of that disease for that individual. I think both will coexist. Both will be successful. It's going to be a different channel, a different market, a different cohort of individuals.
Basically, the reason for me to label it as contrarian was a statement that we had earlier in the discussion, where it was mentioned actually the prescribed path creating certain limitations in terms of limiting access and making it potentially not as easily available for people that may not be subscribed to the current region health insurance.
Look, yeah, it's certainly going to be, I think, slower. And this part of the reason, if you look at somebody like Big Health, has been pretty successful. And while, again, I keep saying this, they're one of the most studied digital health companies, so they do have the science behind it. You know, Peter took it a very different direction, and again, don't know the financials, but pretty successful.
Got it. Thank you. And now to round it off elegantly, a more personal one, as at the end of the day, it's all about the human aspect and the personal touch. So I'll be quite keen to know, what's your personal guiding value? Why do you do what you do?
So I think one of the things, and honestly, we have this as a one of the values of your coach as well, is authenticity. That's one of the key ones, right? I think that's a key component, and this is how we're talking to our team members, to our friends, amongst each other. You know, honestly, I don't know where it's going to air, but no bullshit and authenticity, right? Really be authentic to yourself. And back to the comment of, you got to put your own mask on first and be composed and understand what the goals are before you can help others, right? Because that's one of the key things. And right behind authenticity, if you're authentic, you build trust, and that's what you need on any journey.
Lovely. Eugene, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. Looking forward next opportunities to collaborate and co-create. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invite, and to the audience, hope I'll catch you somewhere in the social media.
Awesome. Thanks.